Hello, this is Marilyn Thomas with the Homewood Flossmoor Chronicle. My guest today is Belgie Falkner. He's a candidate for the Flossmoor Village Board, and we're going to have a discussion about bringing business into town, finances, and the general makeup of Flossmoor, which he finds enjoyable and a great place to live. And I want to welcome you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Marilyn.
I want to start by asking you if you could give us some of your professional and background so that voters can understand what you feel you can offer to the village.
Okay, well, that's pretty easy. So I am a former business owner, operated a number of businesses. My family used to own Harvey Chrysler Plymouth, and so I was instrumental in that, as well as owning my own entertainment production house. And so I think my skill set in the business realm would be advantageous and be a good thing for the village. I certainly have a lot of experience with organizational aspects of running things and or people pleasing and disseminating information. And so, of course, I understand how numbers work and profit and loss statements, all that good stuff that comes with running a business. And so I think I would be a plus.
Okay. And I just want to ask, do I understand that you are an HF grad?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I'm a proud Viking and graduate of Homewood Flossmoor High School, class of 1980.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
The village has been increasing its economic development, especially since Meyer moved into town.
Mm-hmm.
But there are still some questions of how the village can serve the small businesses. You have your anchor with Meyer, but what about the rest of the community? That downtown, wants to stay fresh and bring people in, and you have the same thing along Flossmoor Road and Valmer. So what suggestions would you have that the village could move toward to support small businesses as well as try and bring in other business?
Well, I think one thing the village needs to do is some of the things I see other municipalities do. They market. They market the existing businesses in the village, and or they seek additional businesses outside the village to come and enjoy the fruits of Flossmoor, if you will. I think the residents need to engage and visit these businesses. We have cleaners, eateries, cookie places, eyeglass places. We got a number of businesses right here. You really don't have to go anywhere, but you have to know that these businesses exist. And so with the hustle bustle of people running their homes and owning their businesses and that, sometimes they drive right past these businesses and aren't aware that they're right there in their face. And so I think it is important for the residents to engage and support these businesses. Outside businesses that will also benefit the community will not come into the community unless they're getting some participation out of the anchor residents. And so that's what we need to do as residents. We need to engage. And so the village has to push that initiative.
Okay, thank you. Another aspect is to improve infrastructure, which in recent years the village has taken upon itself to help reduce flooding in the Heather Hill neighborhood and downtown Vidoc and that whole area on Sterling. What do you see as another project that the village may need to take? And do you feel the village did right or wrong by the work it did on the, let me just start with that. What do you feel the village may need to do next as far as infrastructure?
First of all, get the roads paved, okay? That's what they need. I understand there are other projects the village have in mind and they want to do, but the optics of our roads are horrible. I'm a 48-year resident. I'm not used to that. I'm used to the roads being paved. When people come to visit Flossmoor, they're in awe of the beautiful neighborhood. But that's my personal feeling. There's a lot of residents, much of the community agree with that. And so I kind of understand why the village went in a different direction. I know that there were grants and different things in play as to why they had to move forward with the detention basin. But the beautification of the neighborhood is the beginning of the infrastructure, right? So I think that's important. Of course, they have to move forward with completing this detention basin project. I think a lot of the groundswell from the community, the disdain about the project was how it went about, how it was kind of sprung on the neighbors or the residents of the particular area, i.e. Heather Hill. The residents feel as though it came out of the blue. That's not what leadership is saying, but that's how the residents feel because the information wasn't given out to the residents. Everyone can't physically engage as we all would hope, but information has to go out to move forward on major projects, especially 50 feet from the elementary school door. And so we certainly need more businesses. We are land poor, so it's not a lot of areas that we can build, but we have to be strategic about who we allow to come into our village. I understand that there's another possible project with some townhomes to be built, and I think that's wise. We don't have a lot of choices, but it certainly needs to be a project of that magnitude.
Okay, thank you. Yes, the Heather Hill Basin raised a lot of ire among the residents. And you're talking about communicating. So what would have been a better option to communicate? You'd like to communicate about the businesses in town and communicate about projects. Do you have an idea of how to go about that?
Oh, yeah, it's simple. This is the information age. There's too many avenues to communicate, and you got to explore them all, whether it be door knockers. Personally, I think it should have been a referendum for the voters to have a say-so. I don't think it should have been a rubber stamp for leadership to make that decision, especially when you're talking about such a major infrastructure or a major project in the village. You're talking about changing the landscape of a community. So I think the voters should have had a right to have some say-so on that. I understand why it's being done to, I'm going to say allegedly eliminate some flooding because, the jury is still in, deliberation about that. I don't know if it's going to necessarily do the job, but with engineers involved in that, we should hope that it eliminates the flooding that has taken place for years. But I still feel that the community should have had some say-so, or at least feel like they had some say-so. I think they found out about it in the 11th hour when really the decisions were made.
Okay. Heather Hill is one example. Another example is the release of former police chief Gerald Jones from his position.
Okay.
Some residents think there could have been a better way. These are big decisions that the board took on, and they split the board. So what perspective would you bring for major questions like that? Bring people in for hearing? It's a personnel matter, too. So you have to draw the line somewhere on how much information you can offer residents and how much input you can ask of them. It still falls to the board.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it falls on the board, the final decisions, right? But it's just like a marriage. You're not going to have, and really, the leadership is married to the village, to the community. You're not going to have a successful marriage without total honesty and communication. This thing that happened with with the police chief. The final answers were never really put out there. It was discussed that we will give the information, we will tell you what happened at the end of the day, but it's a lot of he said and hearsay, and so at the end of the day, even I, a person that find myself engaging, don't really know all the answers. And as you stated, it's not necessarily for the community to make the final judgment. Leadership has to do that. That's why you put leadership in place to make final decisions like that. But you still got to allow the community to know what happened. And if you're going to say that you're going to tell the community, you got to tell them. You can't sweep it under the rug. You can't dance around it. Let them understand, let the community know that it was a personnel matter, and you got to put it out there. If you're going to make the decision, you got to put it out there. But your decision as leadership still has to stand.
Okay. Now, you're a longtime resident of Flossmoor. Lots has changed, but at the same time, lots of activity in the village has raised its stature. The Martin Luther King 10th anniversary of Day of Service, that's drawing a lot of attention to Flossmoor. Your arts in the village, scattered around the village, and you have a great arts council. There are a lot of positive things going on in town. Have you been involved in any of those, or is there anything in particular that you would support for another step up?
Well, I tell you, you got to give kudos what kudos are due, right? So when I looked up and saw the Black History Month flags through the village, and I remember 48 years ago, you would not have seen such a thing. And so it brought a smile to my face. I mean, I've seen different events and projects take place in the village that are positive and going in positive direction for the village, and especially with the fact that we are so diverse. And everybody gets a moment to shine in the village with flags and that. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with the direction that leadership is taking in being inclusive in that matter or in that manner. Okay. I just think they can do a better job with their information process to the residents of the village. Okay. But I think they're going in a positive direction. Everyone wants to be included, feel inclusive. And so there can always be more effort in that, regardless of the neighborhood you live in, to make as many residents feel included as possible in their community. Okay. I'm a little guilty as far as not being as engaged, being in business, running a household. I have 2 children, growing up in Flossmoor. And so I didn't necessarily have the time to be as engaged. Now I do, because I'm no longer in the business field of owning my own business. And so I'm becoming more engaged. And with this election coming up April 1st, many of my neighbors asked me to get more engaged and get engaged on another level. And so here I am. So look out, Flossmoor.
And you obviously have a lot of business knowledge to share with the village. And, the village's hand is kind of tied as far as finances, because they're non-home rule. They can only go for so much on loans. You can't borrow beyond a certain point. There's certain restrictions that they're locked into. And that being the case, as inflation rises and costs go up, how can the village, how do you recommend the village maintain what it has and improve when budgets are going to be tight?
Well, that's a little difficult question for me to answer because I don't know the village budget. I'm not locked in like that. There's things, they did have a meeting recently here where they shared the budgets of the community. But there's more things for me to know to give you a solid answer.
Okay.
They have to be fiscally responsible. We all have to be, or we strive to be. You have to make the adjustments where adjustments need to be made. There's still structural things that you have to do, especially for a community like this. As I mentioned earlier, the optics of a person that's never been to Flossmoor still have to be intact. You still have to maintain the beauty of your community. Many people before us were able to do it, so we have to do that as well. But I can't really give you a solid answer on that because I don't know the deep dive of the numbers with the village or in the village as of yet. Hopefully I'll find out real soon.
That's fair.
After April 1st.
All right, we've talked about several subjects, and tell me if there's anything that you would like to add to our discussion.
Well, I'd like to say that it's been a blessing to be a member of Flossmoor, to be a resident. My family moved here. My dad moved us here in '76. It's 8 of us. I have 7 brothers and sisters. We were one of the first few black families that lived in the Heather Hill area. And we were fortunate enough to live around the corner from Muhammad Ali and different people like that, the residents that lived in the neighborhood back in the day. And so it was a blessing. The school system, we were a blue ribbon school system when I was in high school. And the school system is still a draw for our neighborhood.
Yep.
We still have a great school system, and don't let anybody else tell you we don't. It has been good to my kids. My daughter went on to get her master's in accountancy and analytics, and it all started from an economic class that she took at HF. Okay, so it's been good to us, and so much so that even currently I live on the same block I was raised on. I have a lot of friends that I continue to keep in touch with, and because of where I was reared. And it's always been a diverse community, more so now than back in the day. And I couldn't be happier living in Flossmoor. But there are some things, the world is changing. Our safety is changing. We need to be proactive about our safety in our community. I think there's some changes that need to be made with that. I don't think we need to increase the bodies on our police force. There's a number of things to cover with that. And so I think we need to get back to focus on the beautification of this community. I think we need to have beautification awards. There's some beautiful homes here. And there are people that really go all out to beautify their properties and maintain their property value, which is a plus for me. It's a plus for all the residents. And they should be awarded for that because at the end of the day, that's what attracts people to Flossmoor. The beauty of the neighborhood, the diversification of the neighborhood, the great schools. I can go on and on and on, and not to mention the great neighbors. So I appreciate it. Appreciate you asking me that question.
Well, and I appreciate your coming, and thank you very much. And this is Marilyn Thomas. I hope you've found this interesting and informative. Thank you.